Hey folks, let's cover today the old classic FPS Requiem Avenging Angel, released in 1999. Requiem is a very interesting game for its time. It came out some months after Half-Life and mixed classic shooting and usage of many powers that permit a lot of experimentation. However, the general experience was rather mixed, but let's go in order. We play as Malachi, an angel sent by God to stop a group of dissident angels called the Fallen, led by Lilith. The Fallen has subdued the world leaders and created a totalitarian world regime, and they are close to unleashing the Armageddon on the human world. In the first part of the game, we have to pass through the Chaos Dimension that connects heaven and the human realm, and I must say, this part is quite disturbing. The walls pulsate and seems made of living flesh. Partially fleshless bodies of writhing people are stuck to every surface, and their screams and moans fill the air. In this hell, Malachi must fight against several monstrosities using his chargeable power called lightning, that consumes divine essence which recharges over time. It's like the Force from Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, and the general uses and kinds of featured powers quite resemble those used by a Jedi. By the way, once he escapes from the Chaos Dimension, Malachi is teleported to Earth, in the city of New Damascus, where martial law is in force and the population is oppressed by brutal guards. Here, the first objective is to find Jonah's pub and establish contact with the rebel group, which also includes the previous angelic messenger called Haron. The action starts quite quickly, and the game immediately proves to be a decidedly difficult experience, because the enemies end up taking more hits than normal, and on medium difficulty they hurt a lot and their aim is almost perfect. Yes, it's one of those janky and crappy balanced games, especially at the beginning when all we have in hand is the forgettable pistol and very limited angelic powers. The first offensive power we can use is Pentecost, which, when fully charged, can easily reduce ordinary soldiers in jibs, and that's amusing, but the divine essence available is still very little. So all we have to do is grit our teeth and endure these first levels, where also enemies often spawn beyond our backs, continuously, and the situation improves a little when we get the machine gun. See, one good thing is that opponents stagger like nothing, like in Shogo, and it's easy to keep more of them at bay together with bars, and luckily we don't have to deal with magazines. By the way, Requiem doesn't feature classic levels, but instead it's a seamless interlinked game world composed of interconnected maps, as Quake 2, Unreal and Half-Life previously did. I would say that the overall level design is just fine. The majority of maps are mostly linear, and sometimes it's not much clear where to go to achieve some goals, and the switch hunting or puzzles are pretty rare. As the game progresses, Malachi unlocks more angelic powers and cool weapons, like this badass 3-barrel pump shotgun, and begins to live up to its premises. New powers like haste permits to run like crazy for several seconds, and insist converts an enemy to our side for some time. We can even summon a swarm of locusts on a distant enemy and erect a shield that repels incoming projectiles, but that lasts only 1 second. Better than nothing. However, there's always the problem that enemies have instant reflexes and perfect aim, and so for example, while invoking locusts, they often hit us in the process with ease, even during the effect of haste, causing the attempt to be creative to fail. Continuing, the next weapons include this sniper rifle which I used only a handful of times, and a grenade launcher with limited range and exaggerated splash damage, followed by the rocket launcher which I found more useful and fun to use. What will radically change the game, however, is the acquisition of the power called warp time.
Bio level 2.
Yes, this power is probably the first implementation of classic bullet time in a video game, and the main reason why Requiem should be known. And by activating this power, I was able to see that the enemies are not its scanners. Their projectiles are just super fast. Warp time is useful for hit and run tactics, because the duration of the bullet time is fixed, and later the game offers another very cool power that allows to resurrect dead human enemies which were not reduced in gibs. We can create small armies of undeads, and on paper it sounds great, but then we have to deal with the stupid pathfinding, and in battle they are less powerful than they seem. In fact, I found them disappointing. See, they also have this bad habit of getting stuck and blocking our passage, and so we have to shoot them dead, and who has died twice cannot be resurrected again. Continuing, the next cool power worth of mentioning is that which turns enemies in salt statues that crumble, but requires a lot of precision. Then this other that allows us to leave our body and wander like a spirit in search of an enemy to possess within a limited time, but I used it rarely. By the way, the craziest power is this that makes enemies' internal blood boil and then explode. It's ludicrous, but rather difficult to use during shootings. Near the end of the game, we'll obtain the final weapon, which is this railgun ridiculously overpowered that reduces all enemies in chips, but its ammo are very scarce. In its approximately 8 hours of duration, Requiem is an interesting FPS to say the least. It starts out well unconvincing and shows its best from the middle. However, it's a game that, though solid, never manages to establish itself among the pillars of the genre. The enemies are well animated, sometimes they get knocked out to the ground, but they get up and shoot us again from behind, and it's neat. We'll face human enemies who can be heavily armored or even pilot giant exoskeletons, and beyond them we'll also struggle against mechs and demons. It's a functional assortment of opponents. Besides, during the story we'll also battle against 4 bosses, which are... fine. They are very spongy and require a bit of study and tactics in order to be beaten. When I finished the game, I wasn't disappointed, but I felt that the overall experience lacked that something that would have made it memorable. A main problem is that its world is quite anonymous. It starts great in the horrific Chaos realm, but then these urban maps are indeed forgettable, and there isn't a place that stands out in my opinion. Exclude the powers that include the first example of bullet time, this game lacks, for example, well, the character of Sin, the incredible scripted sequences of Half-Life, and the speed and balance of, I don't know, Quake 2. As for the sound, Requiem isn't bad either, even if the soundtrack is decidedly limited and the dubbing is a bit poor but still listenable.
Hey, course I'm drunk. They took my boy. Didn't kill him. Took him. He was a good soul. Glory, glory, hallelujah. What's Leviathan to you?
And to finish, the protagonist Malachi, though being a badass with scary powers, at the end is too much of a good-hearted guy, which doesn't impress me at all.
You better not be wasting our time. We've none to waste.
I've seen men turn to monsters, killing blindly. It has to stop.
Just what we need. Another hero. Okay, Malachi. Jonah.
In the end, having played Requiem was a likable experience, which nevertheless made me discover who really introduced bullet time, and also enjoyed experimenting with some of its noteworthy mechanics when it was possible. That said, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.